And then in 1863, when he went to go fight in the Chickamauga War during the Civil War, he became a prisoner of war. So as we know, Juneteenth, the people in Texas did not, because the United States was, communication was not as we know communication today. It took often long periods of time, often months or half a year to get certain messages that the enslaved people in Texas did not get the word or the message that they had been, slavery had ended due to Abraham Lincoln's signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. So there's some historical significance there as it relates to freedom. So I've always known that as a child. It's always been a very important piece of who I am and understanding my family history in that way. Also, I would like to say Ned Hardin was the first to vote in my family. He actually voted in 1867, but it was denied the rights of Black Americans at that time after 1867 to vote. So he did make some historical fact or significance in our family as being the first one in our family to vote. I always like to tell people that I am the first person in my family born with the right to vote. And that gives a lot of significance to the culture, the challenges, and where we are today in America. But Juneteenth also is very symbolic in terms of timing. And just not for the people of Texas. Oftentimes people say, well, why should this be a national holiday? Or why should we celebrate if we're not from Texas? But as I stated from you, a lot of my ancestors came from Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, over Virginia, to Texas during that time. So we're all connected in some type of way. I now am on the campus as a professor at the University of Alabama, and Alabama is the 40th state to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday. And there is a 94-year-old woman who I had the pleasure of interviewing actually today by the name of Opal Lee. And for more than 40 years, she has been advocating to make Juneteenth a day of celebration, a day of significance, not just for the state of Texas, but for the nation. So I kind of grew up in this history, this culture, this spirit that freedom should be celebrated, and not just for people in Texas, but all people. And one of the things I think that is significant about Juneteenth is that it allows us not only to see where we were in terms of a nation, but also to look at freedom in terms of where are we and how can we do even better by offering freedom and making sure everyone is free in our nation. So timing is very, very significant. And then the thing that I absolutely loved about Juneteenth as a young child growing up were the huge celebrations. It is a time for family. It is a time for fellowship. It is a time for community. And often when I was young, that's when I did see my community come together. And they came together to celebrate. They would have these huge celebrations in the park. There's a park here called Sycamore School Park. And you would go there and they would have Juneteenth pageants and they would have dance contests and all types of things. And it was just a big cookout. It was about just celebrating family, celebrating freedom, celebrating where we came from, and also celebrating where we are going to go in the future. So Juneteenth is significant to me in so many ways, in terms of timing, in terms of history, and in terms of celebration. And so I just want, and I wish everyone could see this day as symbolic and significant as it really is. So we have a lot of education to do. And I am excited that Metropolitan is on this charge to educate and to inspire and motivate people to also celebrate freedom and recognize freedom, because we're lucky to live in this nation that gives us freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, for offering such vivid and an engaging background on the meaning of Juneteenth in your life. We so appreciate your friendship as well as you offering a window into Juneteenth's meaning for your family, particularly with you coming from Texas. Your microphones are shut down this evening. After the performance, you may send your questions through the chat to me. Also, the address for an online evaluation is located at mccneb.edu/IIEEVAL and will be listed in the chat. Please share your feedback with us. Praised for its authentic, soulful, and orchestral sound, the String Queens, or TSQ, is a dynamic trio that creates stimulating musical experiences that inspire diverse audiences to love, hope, feel, and imagine. Even going back to the very first Juneteenth, music and celebration has always been a part of Juneteenth observances. And so we at Metropolitan Community College wanted to ensure that that happened this evening as well. With an array of repertoire spanning from the Baroque era to the Jazz Age to today's Billboard Hot 100 chart, the String Queens performs versatile programs that transport audiences through time and a multitude of musical genres. Based out of Washington, D.C., the String Queens members have been featured in famed performance venues across 4 continents, to include Carnegie Hall, the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, the Howard Theater, Royal Festival Hall, Radio City Music Hall, Shanghai Grand Theater, the Moscow Conservatory, and Blues Alley, to name a few. A couple of those places, actually 2 or 3 of those places, I've had the pleasure of visiting. The String Queens members have collaborated with artists throughout the music industry, to include Lettucey, Solange, Leslie Odom Jr., Janelle Monáe, Jennifer Hudson, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Common, Andrea Day, and the late, great Aretha Franklin, among others. As chamber and orchestral musicians, the String Queens members have performed under the batons of legendary musical directors, Ray Chu, Adam Blackstone, and many, many more. In January of 2021, the group performed during the We Are One celebration as a part of the official Kendall, Dawn, and Elise audience. As indicated in the chat, please send your questions to me and I will pose the questions to the String Queens and we will have a chat.
Thanks for having us this evening, everybody.
Yes, we're so happy to be here. We hope you all enjoyed the concert. We know it's been an interesting year for everyone, and it's just such a blessing to still be able to come together and enjoy music together. And so we hope you all enjoyed our performance this evening. And feel free, please, any questions at all, just go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you guys.
Awesome.
Hello.
I have, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. I just wanted to say hello. That's it.
Awesome, awesome. So I have 2 questions already. And how did your musical careers begin? And when did you know that music would become your profession?
Great questions. I'll start. This is Elise. And I started at about, I think, 8 years old, or maybe a little earlier, on piano. My mom played piano, and my dad was in a boys' choir in Brooklyn. And so music was important to my parents. And so they put me in a piano class and my sister in ballet. And piano took for about a minute. After it was over, I was kind of done. So they allowed that for the moment, but then they said, okay, so next summer you're in an orchestra program. What instrument do you want to play? It wasn't, do you want to join the orchestra program? It's, you're in it, and which instrument are you picking? And I chose the cello because of the TV show Fame. Julie played the cello, and I was just so intrigued by her acting skills. And to me, she wasn't acting. That was just real. And so I chose the cello. The passion that she exuded from that instrument I was just sold. And I fell in love. It was a one-time deal. My parents said, just for the summer and then you're free, right? And we were like, okay. So after the summer in August, it was time, to have our, few weeks break before we go in for the school year, the next school year. And we said, it's over. And I remember actually being sad about, ending the cello. It was such a great program, the DC Youth Orchestra program. It was such a great program that I wanted to stay. So my parents re-enrolled us. And so from that age, I think I was about 8 when I started cello, maybe 7 when I started piano. From 8 on, I went all the way through the program through high school. And it was around maybe 16, 17, where I was like, you know what, this is for me. I more than just enjoy, hanging out with friends in orchestra and playing. I really enjoyed the feeling that the cello gave me, the feeling that music gave me, the feeling of different genres of music. And so I knew that I wanted to go to college with my cello. And that's where the career started. I went to Howard, and it just opened up so many doors, and not even opportunities to play, but it just opened up my mind to other genres. I wasn't a big jazz fan before I got to Howard. And if you know Howard, the music department, oh my gosh, you will know that. Hey, you know.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
Listen, I say it out on the street when I see somebody with the teeth, right? But I thank you for doing that. But it was definitely just being around music all the time and the people. I was like, this is for me. This is my vibe, and this is where I belong.
Awesome, awesome. Kendall or Dawn?
I can go. Hi, everybody. So my musical journey kind of started similarly to Elise's with piano. So I was 8 years old. I was kind of banging on my grandmother's piano that my mom had grown up playing. My mom played piano through, elementary, middle school, college, and then for church after that, and then she stopped. But that old Wurlitzer that we still have actually at my parents' home is when I started, just tinkering, trying to play. They said lift every voice and sing was one of the first things that I started to first try to play the melody. And so they threw me in some lessons. And then I wanted to play the clarinet. And my parents were, very supportive of piano, but my mom was like, whoa, like you just started piano, like slow your roll. We had also just moved to Pensacola, Florida, actually at that time from Houston. And so they're like, just get your feet wet. You're at a new school. And by the spring, our school took us to the strings department. So they had showed us, the band and the choir in the fall and winter. And they showed us the string department for the third graders in the spring. And I just had never known anybody to play a stringed instrument in my family or even in my community, friends, church, no one. And the violin, the sound of the violin, I always said, Elise and Dawn have heard this, it just really called out to me like the human voice. And I already love to sing and play the piano. So it seemed to fit. And I don't know why my mom said yes to the violin. At that time, I guess I had a few months at the new school, to settle, the grades were right. And so it was violin. Well, the summer before I was supposed to start, the school calls us at home and says, we've run out of violins. Is it okay if she just plays viola? That's not her first choice, but, it's her second choice. And I'm in the background in the kitchen when my mom's on the phone. I'm like, just tell them yes. Like, I just want to play anything. Just tell them yes. And my mom's like, no, my child signed up for violin. She shall play the violin. She shall play the violin. And it's such a funny story, but I'm so glad she pushed and advocated for me to have what I originally, chose as my first choice. And so I, grew up playing classical from, that time, 4th grade through high school. But I went to Howard as well. HU, and, my parents, they're boomers. They're like, you need to study something where you'll have a job after undergrad, And so I thought I was going to be a surgeon, one day. So I studied biology at Howard. Started teaching science right after Howard and just never stopped playing the violin, right? I was kind of playing the gigs around the city. That's when I met Elise at a couple of DC Jazz Fests, like fundraiser gigs, and we would just have a ball just improvising. And I had never met such a funky cellist, and I had just been doing my own thing. I was singing around town, all kinds of stuff, but I do believe in divine intervention, and the story that has been told about how we met in the video and how I met Dawn through her husband. And there's so many connections in our story like that, where you just know and you're just grateful that it was meant to be, that you thought you'd be here or there with your career or what have you. But really you just see like, this is amazing. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dawn.
Yeah, hi everybody. For me, music has just always been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I remember when I was 5 years old, Christmas is singing at the piano with my grandfather, Charles Austin, who was one of the first African-American conductors on Broadway. And so I grew up in a very musical family, in a very musical home. And I started playing the violin when I was in kindergarten at an inner city public school in Miami, which is my hometown where I'm from. And a teacher put the violin in my hands and locked me in a practice room and said, just play it until you figure out how it sounds right. And that was my first introduction to playing the violin. And here I am all of these years later, continuing to play, but now as a violist. And so I played violin all throughout elementary school. In middle school, I started taking private lessons. And I had a teacher who said, hey, can you just try playing this instrument, which is my instrument now, the viola. She said, I think this instrument is better suited for you. Your arms, I have very long arms and very large hands, which is absolutely appropriate for playing viola. And she said, just try it. And I thought it was a punishment. I cried. I never practiced my violin. So I was like, no, I'll practice violin. Please don't make me do this. And she said, no, just trust me on this. And so I started playing viola in middle school, and I have been a violist ever since. I went to New World School of the Arts for high school. And it was around the time that I was in high school participating in youth orchestras and competitions and actually starting to travel internationally and running my own private studio out of my mom's living room that I realized this is actually my entire life. Every moment of my day, even in school, recreation, free time, was spent in music, practicing, performing, going to rehearsals, traveling, teaching private lessons. And I knew immediately that this was something that was going to be in my life for a very long time. And here I am today as a string queen. I went to the Juilliard School for college. So I went to Juilliard for undergrad and for grad school, and had a lot more experience traveling and performing internationally. And then here we are as the String Queens, having such wonderful opportunities traveling, performing, both domestically and internationally. And I can't imagine a single day of my life without music, as I'm sure many of you can as well. There's probably not a single day of any of our lives where we go without hearing music in some way, shape, or form. Even as early as this morning, I'm an early riser. I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I wake up to the sound of the birds chirping every morning. And this morning, I just walked out back to my backyard and just listened to the music that the birds were making. And so it's very hard as a musician to turn off all of these sounds that you're hearing constantly throughout the day. And even when we go to concerts, or even if we're just shopping in the grocery store and we hear a song that we like, rather than, taking that analysis approach as a musician, sometimes it's nice to just sit back and enjoy and relax and listen to the music as well. And so I had a great time actually even here, just listening to our concert that we performed, which was really fun. And I hope you guys really enjoyed that.
Oh, we absolutely did. How do you believe your approach to music performance and artistic careers are impacted by you being Black or African American?
Great question. Well, obviously, we make up the minority population of musicians, primarily in classical music. And when you're thinking of orchestral music or symphonic music, African Americans make up less than 1.8% of the entire population of musicians who are playing in symphony orchestras right now. And so obviously that comes with its own set of challenges, but it is very, very important for us to obviously not let our skin color be a barrier to the goals that we're trying to accomplish, but also not be a barrier to us making sure that our music touches every end of the globe, and making sure that our music touches young people, Black people, white people, purple, yellow, green, blue. It doesn't matter what color you are. We were all placed on this earth for a reason. And like Kendall was talking about that divine intervention piece earlier, we know in every fiber of our being that we're doing what we were placed on this earth to do, and just fulfilling that purpose of making sure that we're using our gifts to help make the world a better place and to just enrich the the lives of every part of the globe, not just in our own communities or in communities that might not look like ours, but making sure that every single person has the opportunity to experience the soul, the heart, the passion, the technique, everything that we do as the String Queens. We want to make sure that we're touching as many people as we possibly can.
We also want to make sure that this isn't something that's odd or unique or something no one has seen before. I know when I first met my husband, he was like, whoa, I've never seen a black cellist before, and so I'm like, whoa, I'm from DC and that's, all I see, but that's not very true. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I thought his statement was odd and he thought my statement was odd. And part of us is just really getting out there and being seen and showing that all of us in this universe are capable and we all love music. And, the big thing is music is universal. And we want to make sure that we see that music is universal. It's not just in one genre or one race, and that this one in our race, we play all types of music. So just making sure that we're out there, we're seen globally and not, like Dawn said, just in our neighborhood.
And the only thing I'll add, because Dawn and Elise have said everything really, is that, we also don't shy away from the fact that we are strong, Black, beautiful women who happen to also be musicians, but we're also wives and mothers and daughters and friends. We're also very, very hardworking teachers. This is our last day of school today after a very long virtual year of teaching. 2 of us teach middle school and 1 elementary. And so whatever people see, whatever you all experienced when you watched our performance today, if you ever go and watch YouTube, but we hope to see you in person one day too, whatever that feeling is or that energy is that inspired you to maybe, pick up that old hobby that you had kind of been putting on the shelf for a while, or maybe it inspires you to reconnect with somebody that you haven't spoken to in a while, just because music is that powerful. That's really why we do it. But I do want to be clear that we recognize that we are Black women playing stringed instruments, and we are very proud of that. And it is our heritage and where our ancestors are from, and all of that. We wouldn't be the musicians that we are, delivering the soul and delivering the hope and the faith and all of those emotions that hopefully you hear and experience just watching or listening. All of that is also from the rich legacy that our ancestry and our heritage have provided us. People say that like you are your ancestors, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we walk in that light too, as we hopefully shine a really bright light musically. And just whatever you all get from it, whatever our kids get from it, that's why we do it. That's really what it's about.
Absolutely.
Beautifully stated. Beautifully stated. Persons of all profession paused or pivoted with the oncoming of COVID-19 and its continuance. How did the pandemic impact U.S. musicians, and how have you grown from it? And also, how do you suggest we support artists through this time period?
I'll start with how it, I guess, impacted us, or let's see. It hit us all, and it hit us all hard. And I will say Saturday, ladies, was our first live performance with a live audience. And I think when we got off the stage, it was like, whoa. I mean, just to get the feedback from our audience, just to get the conversation that we're having on stage to our audience. You miss it and you don't forget, but the feeling hasn't been there in over a year, and it was almost overwhelming when we got off stage. Like, we did that and we got to touch people and be around people. It was just amazing. It was a hard pill when it first hit. And I think, like all musicians, what in the world is this? And what happens to us? What happens to the group? What happens to musicians of the world? I mean, our friends, stopped gigging, and it just hit the industry so hard. And we were just really fortunate to have had the reputation we had, and to really just, I don't even want to say fortunate, we just had faith that all would work out. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get scared. It was just the unknown. And so what happens next? Mm-hmm. And we just sat still. And of course, everyone was forced to sit still. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, just requests started coming in. we found ourselves about a month later being busy again. And that was just a godsend. We do understand, though, that, at least from my perspective, that halt, that sit down and you can't move, man, that was enlightening. That was a huge light shone upon what we were doing, the rat race we were in. You know, fitting in family here and there, fitting, our schedules. Like, okay, so we have to perform here, and let me call my daughter here. Let me pay attention to my husband there. I mean, it just stopped everything and made us look at what's really important, and also made us look at what we were kind of neglecting. So, as hard as, the world stopping was, it brought us closer to our families. And there was a lot of, loss, a lot of just sad things that happened during the pandemic, but we can't forget that just beautiful things came from it. And like I said, wonderful opportunities came to us. And it was that whole thing, like, just sit still. Don't be afraid, and just listen. And I feel like we did, and we came out on a good side of it professionally. Ladies?
It also just forced us to explore more ways that we were able to connect with audiences, even though we weren't able to be with them in person. And so a lot of our programming shifted to virtual programming, a lot of Zoom performances, a lot of pre-recorded sessions, which were very interesting because even though we're here with you virtually, when we go in to pre-record the concerts, we're in a recording studio. There is an audio engineer, there is a videography team. And so you all probably saw us performing in our masks, and we were probably in the height of the pandemic. And so just to make sure that we were keeping ourselves safe, because we do have to come home to our families and children, but also making sure that the team around us working with us to put on all of our virtual programming, that they were safe as well. And so we had to get very creative with our spacing, with our repertoire, with the length of performances. How long could we physically be in each other's presence, making sure that everybody was healthy, making sure that everybody was of a sound mind. And I think we all had moments during this pandemic where we had to just take a moment and pause and reflect and really, really evaluate what's important to us. And so I know for the String Queens, that came down to a few things: family, our health, our peace of mind, and just making sure that we're not just continuing on with the rat race of performance, rehearsal, but making sure that every experience that we engaged in was meaningful, making sure that it was something that we really wanted to be a part of. Even when we received the inquiry for this, we said, oh, a Juneteenth celebration? Absolutely. This is something that speaks to our mission. This is something that speaks to our passion. And so we actually had a chance to trim a lot of the fat that we had as an organization to make sure that, hey guys, let's really focus on the opportunities that are true to our mission, that are true to the things that we believe in, and connect with audiences that we normally wouldn't have the opportunity to connect with, and really capitalize on this virtual realm, being able to be in so many different places around the world while not even leaving the privacy of our own homes, and just being creative and innovative with the approach that we took with that. And so I think, we've done a lot of virtual programming in the pandemic. It's made us better musicians. It's made us better people. It's forced us to explore many, many different ways to connect with audiences through a computer screen, as opposed to being in a concert hall. And so, there's a blessing in everything. And even though this time has been extraordinarily difficult for all of us, I think we've all grown exponentially. And I'm very, very excited for the road ahead, because we're going to use everything that we've learned during this pandemic, even to fuel when we move forward into live performances, and just incorporate all of these experiences into our live performances.
The only thing I'll add is how you can support. I know that was a question, like how can you support artists during this time? I mean, honestly, I think artistry and performances, live performances, a lot of us probably took for granted before the pandemic, right? It's like, I'll catch my favorite group out the next time they come in town, or that group that I've never heard of, but that seems like Jazz in the Park, or whatever those small or huge opportunities were to hear artists that we kind of just passed by in the rat race of life, as Dawn and Elise said. And so I would say, like, getting your newspapers on websites to the performing arts centers around your city or your area. Travel if that's what it takes. But there are a lot of artists who are actually being reprogrammed for all of the gigs that were canceled, or the concerts that were canceled. A lot of them are being perform now. And so not waiting for, a flyer to come out. No, and then specifically about the types of artists. So there's a lot of interesting conversation around, performing arts centers programming the same kinds of artists, the same symphonies, the same classical, and so taking those opportunities to write letters or petition or get on the website and contact whoever chooses the talent and say, hey, I want to see the String Queens, or I want to see Black Violin, or I want to see a youth orchestra who's killing it, So there are a lot of ways, but I would just say don't wait for you to hear about the String Queens having a concert. Really push yourselves to look into the community around you and where those opportunities are to take in art are, and finding ways to donate to. That so many artists have GoFundMe's or Indiegogo campaigns. Mm-hmm. We were able to finance our entire holiday album, the music video, everything that went with it, from the graphic design of the cover of the album through a GoFundMe campaign, just because people who just cared about us and missed music said, you know what, we just want to give. There's so much support in your communities. We all just have to look around and open our eyes and ears.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a couple more questions. Really quick. First of all, you women are gorgeous, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. One of our friends, a friend of Metro Community College, Dr. Harris, is on here. She's an HU grad, and she was like, you got to tell them I said HU. Okay. I used to live in DC as well, but I went to UDC. Yeah. I got my master's degree from UDC, but all my classes were where? In the minor building back then.
Right. Yes.
Yes. So DC is one of my favorite places. I'm always there. Anyway, who is your absolute favorite? You can only pick one. Woo! Artist. Go.
Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
Ooh, that's good.
That is good. I'm going to choose Yo-Yo Ma. Yeah. Oh, I met him, and what I always thought about him was so true when I met him. And you can't always say that. And you don't always get to meet someone that you admire. And the way he plays, the whole Julie effect, the reason why I even picked the cello, Yo-Yo Ma is so that. And when I met him, he was the warmest. I just fell in love with him. I don't know if you can see, he's right here.
I see.
My husband understands. He's with me at all times, okay? But his soul is so warm. And I love it when he does collaborations. He showed me with the cello, just through his albums, what collaboration was on the cello. I love this man. Okay, I'm done.
All right.
For me, Kendall and Elise can tell you, I'm always listening to gospel music. I'm a huge Hezekiah Walker fan. I remember when I was a student at Juilliard, and I went to his church, and praise and worship went on for about 3 hours before the service even started. I mean, the music was just so rich. We were on the Capitol Jazz Super Cruise literally right before the pandemic hit, and Hezekiah Walker was on the Super Cruise. Yes. And I think we had a concert maybe an hour
that night.
And I told the girls, I said, I have to go see Hezekiah Walker. And it was just amazing. The most fulfilling experience. I mean, right, just amazing. Yeah. The power, the depth, the passion, the spirit, the soul. And it's applicable to every genre of music, not just gospel music. When you hear classical music, when you hear pop, R&B, country, jazz, whatever it is, you want that music to speak to the sweet spot in your soul. And that's what Hezekiah Walker's music does for me.
Yes, Dawn. Okay.
Wonderful. I love Hezekiah as well. So everybody, let's give another round of applause. Give it up to the String Queens. Thank you. This was amazing. And hey, write the Holland Center for Performing Arts. Tell them you want the String Queens to come to Omaha. Yes. Let's do this. Yes. Audience, thank you. I'm just overflowing with joy. Because of the holiday, the observance, it's just amazing. Again,
yes,
Dr. Harris, String Queens, Barbara, everybody, audience, thank you. To end, I can go on forever. To end our wonderful evening, we have one last salute to Juneteenth from Shankita Newsom O'Neill, and she is going to give her perspective. We opened up with Dr. Harris's perspective, and then Mrs. O'Neill's perspective. Wishing you an enriching Juneteenth holiday. Thank you. And at the conclusion of her video, we bid you good night.
The song says, "Let freedom ring." But freedom was once not a thing for people who look like me in America. From every mountainside, freedom existed, but not in the South. The sweet land of liberty did not exist for my ancestors until 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation was supposed to declare that all shall be free. But don't you know that liberty for African Americans in America still did not exist? Slaves in Texas were still being held captive with no idea that their prayers had been answered. 2 years later, on June 19th, 1865, soldiers arrived in Texas with the most glorious news that I'm sure my ancestors had ever heard. You are free. Legally, you can no longer be held by your master's will. You are free. On that day, freedom could actually ring from every mountainside, from Texas to Georgia to Mississippi, Alabama, the list goes on. We could actually sing this song. Sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring. Unfortunately, I never learned about Juneteenth in grade school or college. No history book ever highlighted it or made it seem important. A people who were enslaved, beaten, and stripped of their most basic human rights for hundreds of years. Our freedom was just a footnote. Juneteenth was never declared a national holiday, but the spirit of my people always prevailed. Without any national recognition, my people still praise, dance, and celebrate this day. With no fireworks stands or commemorative decorations in stores, my people still come together to spread the word of the good news of our history, our legacy, our day of independence. I believe that Juneteenth is the most important day in history for African Americans in this country. A day of liberty, justice, triumph, victory, faith, answered prayers, a light at the end of a very dark tunnel that lasted over 400 years. Tears of pain turned to tears of joy, and a day of new hope being birthed forth, filled with unlimited dreams and possibilities for offspring like me to succeed in the 21st century. So today I say, happy Juneteenth. May we celebrate this day for an eternity. May we continue to educate communities at large, the nation, and our families of the importance of June 19th, the day that marked the start of our freedom and the spark that lit the torch for people of color to thrive in this country. Thank you.
Good night. Continue to be safe, everyone.